white matter, one part. Second, basal ganglia, and we'll describe them. Between these basal ganglia, white matter capsules, internal capsule, external, and extremal. Next part of telencephalon is rhinencephalon. Rhinencephalon or olfactory brain. During development of the brain, in phylogenetic, not ontogenesis, phylogenetical evolutional development, we have paleocortex, archicortex, and at last is formed neocortex. Only at Homo sapiens developed the neocortex hemisphere, but more old part of the brain they displaced into the depth, into the thickness of the brain. They form olfactory brain. The most old part of the brain is olfactory brain. This part, some structures belong to rhinencephalon. After explanation, I will describe this rhinencephalon. This is the third part of telencephalon. Remember? Pallium, then basal ganglia, rhinencephalon, and at last we'll describe the remnant of the cavity of anterior brain vesicle. The remnant of the cavity is this, the lateral ventricles. The first ventricle lies in the left hemisphere, the second ventricle lies in the right hemisphere. First and second ventricle, they form the cavity of the telencephalon. These lateral ventricles connected with what ventricle? The third ventricle, and through the aqueduct with the fourth ventricle, and after the fourth ventricle through the apertura mediana and laterale, through the this structure. What structure lies here? Cisterna cerebellum medullaris. Through this subarachnoid space, outflow through the arachnoid granulation. Antonio Pacchioni described, Italian anatomist, which described this mushroom-like structures, granulation arachnoidalis Pacchioni, through which outflow into the superior sagittal sinus. This is plan of your answer of telencephalon. Now we'll describe the hemisphere from all sides. This is dorsolateral surface of the hemisphere. What primary groove we can see? This groove is called sulcus centralis. Constant groove, sulcus centralis rolandi, sulcus centralis. Immediately you can see this groove, sulcus centralis. In front lies lobus frontalis. Behind lies lobus parietalis. Sulcus laterale, which describes sylvi. Sulcus lateralis sylvi. In front it is opened, like mouth open. It is called fossa lateralis. This is sulcus lateralis, this is fossa lateralis. Between anterior pole of the temporal lobe and frontal lobe, we have fossa lateralis sylvi. Separated the temporal lobe from frontal and from parietal. Occipital and parietal on the dorsolateral surface, we have not any groove which separate. Only on medial surface you can see this groove, sulcus parieto-occipitalis, and conditionally you can continue this. Occipital lobe is more thin, less differentiated than more thick and protruded this lobus frontale, which is the best development reached at Homo sapiens. That is why on the stage of the development of the skull, desmocranium. Do you remember desmocranium stage of frontal lobe causes what structure on the frontal bone? Tubera frontale, specific feature only for Homo sapiens, because the frontal lobe only at Homo sapiens, not at chimpanzee or gibbons and orangutan, they have not this developed frontal lobe. Only feature of the frontal tuber frontale on frontal bone of the skull, because the reason of development of anterior part of the brain. This we have what lobe? Frontal lobe, temporal, parietal, occipital, and the fifth lobe lies in the thickness of the sulcus lateralis. Here is not visible, the fifth lobe. If you will cut some part of the brain, which is called operculum, the roof of this part, operculum frontale, parietale, and temporale, if you will remove, in the thickness we can see the fifth lobe. It is called islet, in Latin insula, islet. Insula, the fifth lobe is insula, which is separated by sulcus circularis from other parts of the brain, and on insula can describe gyrus longus and gyrus breve insula. And now in each lobe we'll describe secondary grooves, and not only describe the grooves and sulci and gyri, but you will name functional. In anatomy, you will connect structure, function. Each organ, when you describe structure, you connect it with function. We will describe gyri and explain the functional localization of the different pathways in the cortex. We have descending, ascending projection fibers. They are ended in different areas of the brain. At first, you missed this lecture of the functional anatomy of the cerebral cortex. I don't know. It is electronic version of this lecture. It is my lecture, but I did not deliver this there, because EOP, это не знаю как. EOP, как это переводится на английский? EOP, единый образовательный портал. Туда выставили мою лекцию. Ну, в общем, on electronic version of this lecture you can read. Bahmet, she took this lecture and will give on the site of our department. During lecture, I will introduce with two new terms, cytoarchitectonic and myeloarchitectonic. What does it mean, cyto? Distribution of nerve cells, neurons in the cortex. Different region of the brain. In Institute of the Brain, specialists describe these areas of the brain, group of neurons which has the same function, same structure, same distribution. They form specific area of the brain, like geographic map. On this area ended or start different pathways, ascending or descending. They are called cortical areas, and distribution of nerve cells, functional distribution, is called cytoarchitectonic. Distribution of the white matter nerve processes, it is called myeloarchitectonics. And Institute of the Brain, for example, by Brodmann described about 52 area of the cortex, 52. Of course, students will study only the some, not 12 or 5, 12. 5 for the free, it is minimum that you must know. But with the second signal system connected centers, you must also explain the system centers which connected with the speech, with the writing center or speech articulation center, specific for Homo sapiens. These centers distributed different part of the brain. That is why when you will describe gyrus, immediately you must explain function. This is sulcus centralis, yes? Now we'll describe frontal lobe, gyri, sulci, and function. This is sulcus praecentralis. Between sulcus centralis, sulcus praecentralis, what gyrus lies? Gyrus praecentralis. And two grooves horizontally directed. One is sulcus frontalis superior, another sulcus frontalis inferior. It is interrupted here. And between them, three gyri. Gyrus frontalis superior, gyrus frontalis medius, gyrus frontalis inferior. This is inferior. Precentral and three horizontal. One is longitudinal and three horizontal. Gyrus praecentralis and some part of the medial surface, gyrus paracentralis, lobulus paracentralis, it is motor area of the brain. From this part, here our body projected vice versa in head down position. Here our head, here our foot projected. And from this gyrus praecentralis fifth layer, pyramidal cells, start all our conscious tract, pyramidal tract. This is motor area of the brain. In gyrus frontalis media, posterior part, we have premotor area, premotor. Here lies the writing center. Destroyed of this center causes agraphia. This patient could not write something because here projected about the trunk and upper limb, and motor center